Welcome once again to Story War, and today we are talking about youth, mental health, street, stress, and everything in between. My name is Dr. Fred, and today I'm going to host a gentleman whom I am so privileged to be in the show with, and he's one guy who is doing amazing thing regarding youth and street connected children in northern Uganda. And today we want to hear more about mental health, these children, their life in the street, and generally everything in the work that he is doing. So Mike, you are welcome.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah. So Mike, briefly, you can introduce yourself to our viewers, who you are, what you do, and your work with the street kids.
Sure. Thank you, Fred. My name is Michael Ojok. I work with Hashtag Gulu as the co-founder and team leader at the moment. Hashtag Gulu works with young people, especially those who live most of their life on the streets, young people who are out of schools, and young people in the community who are in states of vulnerability. But also by extension of working with these young people, we also now work with their parents and caregivers and community leaders as a whole, because these young people come from within the community, and that means they come from homes where they are either parents or caregivers or caretakers, but also those communities have leaders. So our work aims to get these young people off the streets and take them back home. So it's important that we do not just stop the work with the young people that come to our space, but also those who can watch over them from the community, and those are their parents and then the leaders in those same communities.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. It's really a privilege, and that today you're with us and you are going to unpack some of these things, that you're going to clear a lot of misconceptions, a lot of perceptions down together regarding these street connected children. I have learned that that's the right word to call them.
Yes, it's better to say street connected than a street child, because the young people on the streets, majority actually come from homes and they don't stay on the streets. Whereas quite a number of them live fully on the streets. So street connected captures both those who come from homes and spend some time on the streets and go back home, but also those who are on the streets full time.
Yeah. So, to begin with, I know I have really seen hashtag for quite some time now, and it has appeared across different spaces.
Yes.
And of late, in the past few months, issues regarding mental health has really been a challenge. And it's one of the things that we have known, that the youth are really going through it a lot. And someone would imagine that for a child or a kid or a youth who is street connected, the challenge might even be double or more many times. So what have you guys over years of work realized that they are the factors that lead to these kids being on the street?
Yeah, so mental health does not segregate who you are or how old you are, where you live, whether you have resources or not. And you can imagine if someone with access to all the money and the best things that money can buy in the world will still struggle with mental health. How much more would a young person who is struggling to survive day by day face? So, and to make it worse, for most young people, they are also struggling with other challenges. So, and for us in the North, mental health challenges do not just come as mental health challenges alone. There's usually poverty, there's neglect, there's struggling to figure out how to survive, where your next meal is coming from, where you're going to spend the night. and if he will spend the night safely. And all those factors contribute to challenges that a young person on the streets already faces. And this young person, wherever they are, chances are high that they are abusing drugs. They are facing violence from their colleagues on the streets, but also law enforcement that every now and then would, ground them up. So for most of the young people on the streets, addiction, besides all the other factors, how they are living their lives, is the major cause of mental health. Because for that, it can actually lead them to lose their lives or even get hooked to drugs to survive, to be able to deal with the other stress factors. Most of these young people resort to either abusing drugs, alcohol, or other harmful substances. So then that becomes their coping mechanism. And then it gets to a point where their thinking capability is, is impaired. And now you have a child who is on the streets, is dealing with all these other challenges, and then it gets to a point where it gets too much for them and they cannot take it anymore. And that child becomes a danger to themselves, because as an adult, you could just sit and think you have a lot to lose. But for a young person who is not living at home, is struggling daily on the streets, does not know where their next meal is coming from, or where they're going to sleep, or when they fall sick, what will happen, what will stop that child from feeling hopeless and doing anything, not just to themselves, because it gets to a point where majority don't care about themselves, but the person they are going to meet, either in a back street or in the dark at night, someone who has, things. So when we hear things to do with people being robbed at night, or people being raped, or people being murdered, and I'm not saying young people on the streets do this, anyone else can do it, but the chances for a young person who has been struggling, has not eaten for maybe a couple of days, then seeing someone walking with a phone or a bag, what would stop that person from, from doing the worst they can? Because literally they don't have anything to lose, and they are not thinking at that moment. All these problems have compounded themselves, and now they're only thinking of, how do I get this to make sure I am able to get what I want. So whereas for you, you can restrain yourself when you are dealing with all these issues, a young person whose mind is not developed to think like that, who is just after survival, would not be able to think like that. So they struggle with mental health issues just like any of us, and how they deal with it is what matters. And a lot of them also don't know where to get help at the end of the day.
But in the first place, how do these youth or kids get to the street?
They are a combination of both pull and push factors. The simplest of them that I can think of is that in a home setting, sometimes children are being children, and say there's this one kid who said his mother sent him to go and buy cooking oil, and then he went, found his colleagues playing, and he lost the money. So when he lost the money, he went back home, and the mother asked him, so where is the cooking oil I sent you to buy? He said he lost the money. And then the mother said, leave my home until you are able to come back with cooking oil, or the money you lost. Don't come back home. And for him, that was enough, because he thought that now the money is lost and he cannot bring back cooking oil, so the mother does not want him at home. When our social workers took him back home, the mother said, she said that when she was annoyed in the heat of the moment. And before that, she was actually looking for that same boy, but the boy had already left home. The other factor that is concerning is that a lot of these young people come from broken families, single female headed households. So you find that parents deal with their own issues, and some of those issues trickle down to the children. So where families where there's been violence and hunger and separation, the children also feel the impact of that separation. So there are things that happens at home that pushes those young people away from home. But also on the streets, there is some sort of freedom and family and connectedness that a young person finds that pulls them to come. Because when you're not left from home and you go on the streets and you find a street family that cares about you, whether they're violent or not, because on the streets also where those young people live, if something is happening, you will have backup from the people you live with on the streets. But also you're free to do what you want and when you want to do it. So now for a young person who comes and finds that sort of like care and attention from places where they're not supposed to get it from, they are hooked.
They
So
become
now
comfortable there.
they feel like they are loved away from home than from home. So then it pulls more young people away from where they are to where they're not supposed to be. But also imagine you live in a community and you see someone has left home and they're living on the streets and they are coming back. They have money, they have these phones, they are eating when they want, and for you, you are at home. Because trust me, in a family, and we have seen this, sometimes there are 3 or 4 children in that home and only one has left, but they're going through the same conditions at home. So if this one who has left is because these children talk, they know themselves. If this one is coming back home and his siblings are seeing him with access to resources and the freedom to do what he wants when he wants to do it, what will stop these other children from, coming to live on the streets with them? So also the reason why now we focus on the parent is that we want this parent, when this child on the streets decides to come back, the child will find a changed household. But also these children who are still living at home, they will see that there are changes in their household and they will not feel the need to, come on the streets. But they're a combination of both. There are things that we do at home that pushes children to go and live on the streets. Neglect, lack of love, violence at home, parents not loving each other, and so on and so forth. But also there are things that happen on the streets that children see and say, maybe home is not where I belong. Let me go and try there. And a lot of it has to do with peer pressure, really. What is more concerning is what happens at home that pushes our children away. Because if that is dealt with, then the peer pressure and the pull factors will also be dealt with for the most part.
Yeah. So by what you've said, I think I think sometimes even going to street is already a mechanism of coping up with the mental health, the issue that the child is already facing at home, and so they run away from it.
So you see, especially for me those days, I grew up with a single mother who raised all my siblings. But back then, there were like 1 or 2 uncles. If anything happened at home, those are the guys who would be called. So if for one of my uncles, if you saw his bike entering your compound, you definitely know one of you has done something and you're going to be caned.
Trouble.
But these days, even the adults are not living together. So there's literally no one you can, as a parent, there's very, very few people you can call to come to your home and speak with your children. But also for the children, when things are happening, because you are growing up away from your grandparents, if they are still there, or other siblings of your parents, if they're there. So the children also don't know who to talk to because they cannot, speak with their parents when they are seeing things and they need things to be addressed. So mostly it's the parents who are seeing things going wrong and they are not dealing with it or dealing with it the wrong way. So now imagine for a child like that who is caught in between 2 parents who are fighting, or a parent who is doing their best, because there is no school where parenting is taught. You also learn on the job. And if you, as a parent, was not parented well, that will definitely trickle onto the child.
Into
So
the
as a parent, you don't know where to find help, but also your children don't know where to find help. So you'll keep on clashing in the home. And when a child like that finds freedom on the streets or sees a colleague who is living without any burden, that child will run away from home. Yeah.
Now, so after these kids have already left home and they are on the streets, and with your work with them, with what you have studied uh, over the years working with them, how do these kids cope up with such challenges, such stress, neglect? How do they cope up without any support?
Yeah.
And then as hashtag maybe, what do you do to render them such support so that they eventually heal from what pushed them out of home?
So for most of these young people, the street is their support system because they are either sleeping together in the verandas, they are eating together, they are protecting one another from harm. When harm is coming, they are running together. So in the spaces where they live, they have their sort of like their support and leadership structure. So that is a support system which replaces what a positive support system at home or within a family setting should provide for a child. So for us, and what we have experienced is that it's very hard for a child on the streets to trust any person in authority. It takes a lot of time. So the bulk of our work is in trying to gain trust of a young person until you get to a place where that young person trusts you. They will not open up or accept any kind of intervention you are doing. So, and it does not matter how many kids we get to a point where they trust us, but it's until they do, that is when someone will now tell you the truth about themselves. So continually, our team of social workers and counselors and clinical psychologists are learning ways to make sure they build trust better. Because also I think many people and many NGOs have been here, and for the most part it seems like they are only after making money with stories for young people. So now sort of like all these young people have their guards out because we cannot take our pictures, you cannot write our stories unless we are benefiting from it. So it takes a lot to help them understand that all these stories that we are doing is not to gain from your story, but actually to help us help you. So you will realize that at our space, there are things that happen. If someone walks in, there's a counselor that they can speak with, there's a nurse, they can just come and wash and come and play, dance, participate in art and go, even without telling us who they are. But then the counselors and the clinical psychologists and the social workers are there all the time. So that a young person should get to a place where they say, I can trust this space because I've come here and I've not been judged. So many times when they are down there, and if say they are quarreling and fighting, what I tell my staffs is that you be there as the adult, help them understand that what they are doing is wrong, or there's another way to solve conflict. So then we have this sort of like structured therapy program that for those who continually come and they see that this is a space that is safe for me, they can register to be part of those therapy programs. So they either do group therapy where a counselor is there, they are listening from one another, sharing their stories, but also there's individual counseling. So you can decide that I want to speak with a counselor because what I have learned in the process of this sensitization or speaking with the nurse or this, awareness campaigns that happen in this space is something that I've seen in myself. So we do sensitization in different areas against physical health, sexual reproductive health, mental health. All those are done to help someone see that, okay, maybe this is where I am. I don't feel physically well, I can seek help from a nurse. Maybe as a young girl, I have been abused or raped, or as a young boy, I am doing this, but then there's help. So when someone sees that, then they can register for the other programs. But also in the process, we are getting to know them. We are continually updating their biodata, so that when it gets to a point where someone says, okay, I think I need to forgive my parents. Maybe they did something wrong, or maybe I did something wrong before I ran away from home. So I need to go and ask for forgiveness. Then we have someone who will, make contact with their families.
Some sort of mediation.
Yes, and go and mediate or work with you if you are scared of speaking with your parents on the first side. And sometimes what we get from home is actually very, very different. There are families who will outright say, for this kid, we don't want this kid at our home.
We have made our
But their
minds.
parents will say, I didn't know this is how this child felt. I am sorry. So sometimes it's the parent who is apologizing for their action. Because at the end of the day, the parent remains the parent in the life of their child, whether you own up to the responsibility or not, but you're the parent. So sometimes a child will act a child, but it's upon you as a parent to say, this was wrong, or I could have handled myself better, shouldn't have said this or done that, or A, B, C, D, or I should have defended my child. Because sometimes it's not even the parent, but it's the other people in the home who are picking on the child. So if you don't see that as a parent, so sometimes you've gone to places where the parents have apologized to the child actually. There was this case in Kidgum where the child ran away thinking he had burned his mother and younger sister in the house. The house was burned, right? But then those people did not die. But simply because the child set fire on the house and ran, and those guys were sleeping, he thought they were dead. So then these people, when the child went home, for 5 years, they didn't know where their child was. So then and what led to the fight was actually very, very different from what the child said. So what the child said happened to us is different from what happened at home.
At home.
For 5 years, he carried the guilt that he killed his mother and younger sister, and he didn't want to go home. He actually thought whatever hardship he's going through on the streets was punishment for things he did
for him
at
killing
home.
his parents.
So when he went back home for the first time, he didn't even want to go home, but the social worker went, then found out what happened at home, then went with him. It was a totally different scenario to see for us. But I think what we have decided is that we will have people who will be there. And when we will continue doing all these programs, we'll have the dances, we'll have the arts, we'll have the performances, we'll have the counselors and social workers and the nurse be down there in the space, but just be sort of like the bigger sister or bigger brother to someone who has not had. If something wrong is happening, correct, rebuke, and correct. Don't be too quick to judge, because sometimes you're actually the first person in the life of that child who has corrected them or has sat down to hear them, and no one has done. And what that happens is that the young person knows that this is a safe place for me to come and be myself. Because when they are fighting, when something happens and they're struggling to solve it, that is their reality. And now you introduce another structure to them. Ultimately, the goal is to disconnect them from the streets as they rewire their mindset, especially for those who've been on the streets for long. So we run a farm in Paicho, and after every 4 months, we are able to take about 30 to 40 to come and live on the farm and learn agriculture. So that is not just a school. What it's doing is that it has disrupted you from the streets. It's allowing you to learn how authority works, but also how to work hard. Because if you're on the farm, you are working. There's a farm manager, there are trainers, there's an askari, the counselors are coming. So you are rewiring your mindset. You're not just learning agriculture, but and while that is happening, your parents are being looked for. The parents are coming to see you on the farm. Others will see their parents for the first time in a long time on the farm. And then when the parent goes, they know that my child has not just been living on the streets, but they've actually been learning something productive. So when they come home, how do I help them? So for us, the bulk of the work is in helping this young person learn to trust another person or an institution again, because many of them have been used, have been abused, and they don't trust people who come to them.
And because they don't trust, they now feel it that they should take life on their own.
Yeah.
That's very important actually, such that even as they are working in the farm, they are gaining some values that will help them to go and be actually more productive.
So the other thing that happens is that on the street, you're struggling to figure out where you're going to sleep, what you're going to eat, but that is provided on the farm. However, you work for it. You don't pay to stay on the farm. You have to tilt the garden or take care of pigs or take care of poultry or set up a nursery plantation or have your own demonstration plot and plant. So that child, by the time they're leaving the farm after the 4 months, majority actually go straight home. But also because their parents have come to see where they are and what they're doing, the parent now has an idea of how to help you do what you want to do. But while the parent comes, we again have another group of people who will first of all speak with the parents alone and the intention is not to judge, but to actually have a conversation with the parent and say, you are the adult, what happened? Where did things go wrong? How can we help? And then we have another team that do not work with us, but they are open to having conversations with parents when such a parent feels like, they are overwhelmed and they don't understand. So just someone like an outlet where you can vent and say things are going like this, like that. So because also sometimes as an adult, you don't really need solutions, but you need to let off steam so that those things, you don't keep them bottled up.
As a process of forgetting the past and learning.
And also sometimes the person you're speaking with has gone through what you're going through now, so they can share their experience. And by listening to their experience, you are helping yourself find solutions for your own issues.
There is something you mentioned about seeking support or seeking help. So we can assume that there are currently also many people, many youth, many young kids who are at home there, but because they are not seeking support or because no one is rendering support, they're enduring. It's just a matter of time before they also come to the street. So what practices do you see in our current communities and society that does not allow for children or youth to seek support? Or in other words, what do you think is the barrier between youth and seeking support?
So in our community those days, we lived as a community. That's where the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child" came, because chances were high that you, as Fred, you are not living alone. You are living in a compound where your brothers are there, or your uncle or your aunt, as one big happy family, as an extended family.
You eat food from all corners.
And when anything happens, if you're not around, your brother will rebuke your child, or a neighbor will rebuke your child and report to you. But what happens now is that I am renting away from family, and then where I am staying, everyone is busy going about their lives, and there's no one who will watch over my child. Chances are high that there's a house girl or a babysitter who is doing the child raising, for those who can afford. But for those who cannot, the elder siblings are the ones who are doing that. So you leave home in the morning, come back late in the evening. You don't know what is happening within this gap. You have paid school fees. Your children will leave home to go to school. You also leave to go and hustle. You come back and find your children at home. You don't know whether they even went to school. Parents' meetings will be called. You are not there. And sometimes the school will only call you when your child has done something wrong. Or it's the police or the local area chairperson who will call.
They want you to come in to correct
when something has already happened. So the whole idea of people living by themselves, away from family, and you cannot blame them because sometimes you also don't have any family to live with, or your family is the cause of your, moving away from home. So that entire aspect has changed how parenting is done in communities, because also you are not friends with your neighbors. You don't talk. Sometimes you quarrel with your neighbors, and your neighbors cannot wait to laugh at you when something wrong
goes wrong.
happens.
In
So
fact, there are even neighbors who are happy that your child is misbehaving.
yeah. So it takes a lot, because one, if you are not intentional about building a relationship with your neighbors, for instance, those who live away, or creating a community that can support you, then this problem will continue. What we did 2 years ago with all the parents that were coming here is that within the communities, there are people like, there was this grandfather, and he's the one who gave us the inspiration, not by telling us we should do it, but we saw what he was doing. His grandchild was in one of our programs. We took him to a farm in Omel. By that time, we used to send learners to other farms. We didn't have the infrastructures yet. When his boy came back, he was so happy to go back to the grandfather. And he was literally the only grandchild that man had. And he said, look, I am retired. I have all the time to care for this boy, but he keeps running away from home. Nothing would make me happier than caring for him. His parents are no more, and he's the only grandchild who is at home. I have a very large home. There's nothing that is not provided for this young boy. And I don't know what happens. So then we met another retired egg teacher who say in his community he sees all these things, and sometimes he's just at home and talking with children. So he said his compound is open. There's a mango tree, and then when during the mango season he's there speaking with these young kids. He allows them to come. He gives them water. They play and go home. So then the idea was like, there are these parents in the community who see things happen, and then there is you who does not have time to stay at home. So what happens when this parent does not just open their home to young people to come and play, but also once in a month or once in a week will rally the parents around and just come and say, let's talk. How are you struggling? What is wrong? Can we share experience? So we started this parental group from the parents who go through our trainings in their community. We ask those who are willing to host such a conversation. And so you're not supposed to sit back. You see your neighbors, you can approach them and say, look, I stay home, we are not at home all the time, and I see ABCD, and this. Where is the challenge? So then many people opened up their homes to have these meetings, and our social workers go around.
Some sort of informal center.
Informal. It's not even a center. It's just someone who say, I have a compound, or I have a large shed. Can we come and see it
and talk about these things?
You see parents in that community, coming. And with the help of Family Life Network, we developed a simple model for having these conversations for parents. So then you see how people would come and just talk and say, if you need to talk, I am here. Don't struggle alone.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've talked about parents and their roles in children leaving homes. You have talked a bit about community and how all these things stems from our disconnection and social fabrics getting worn out. We want to come to the government side. Earlier in the conversation, you said these children or these kids who are connected, street connected, the youth, they have also a problem with the authorities. What do you think the government or the authorities in these cities are getting wrong when it comes to dealing with street connected youth?
For the longest time possible, our leadership has been reactive. They wait until something wrong happens, then they swing into action. That is why what we see in the news is that 100 people have been rounded up and sent to CPS. Parents come and scream, or someone is killed, or they have beaten this number of young people. That is actually why the deputy RCC is feared more, because that is what he's doing. They are reacting. They are not being proactive, because the reasons why all these young people are living on the streets is not something new. As a region, we know our background, we know what happened, we know what disrupted livelihoods here, and how people ran away from the communal sort of like settings to living as a nuclear family and struggling to make ends meet. So also, you cannot blame those in authority because they do not have the resources or the legal framework or knowledge to deal with these young people. The Ministry of Gender, that is supposed to be the line ministry that deals with these young people, do not have any sort of like policy framework to deal with street children. When they are talking about youth, when they're talking about children, even in terms of policy, street children are forgotten. I don't know if it's because they do not want to acknowledge. That's why also in Kampala, when they're talking about Karimojong kids on the streets and begging, what happens the most is for the authority to round up these children and send them to a facility. But is that the problem for these young people? Where are they coming from? Why are they there? Stories are told of how there's a trafficking racket in Karamoja, that takes these children away from their homes to go and beg on the streets, and they send money to someone. Why is that someone not being looked for so that they are held accountable? Also here, there are very many people who bring children to come and work as, house girls, or those who are employing children, and they take advantage of them in restaurants and so on. And so why are they not being, looked for? But why isn't anyone in authority paying attention to these children and find out why are you living life like this? So for me, that is the missing link. But also, the other issue is that even if someone is to take interest, where will you take a child? So let's say, for instance, you are the probation officer for Gulu City. You don't have a budget in your office. There is no rehabilitation home where you take this child to. If you meet them and then you understand their story, and so now what happens?
Nowhere to take them.
Yeah, so that is the bigger issue. Even all these NGOs, including ourselves, you write projects, and your projects have, say, project activities and deliverables. There are things that are beyond you. So actually, for me, the worst feeling I get is when I meet a child and I cannot help them. Because if you take a child home and their parents does not want them back home, that child has to come back on the streets. So there is no intentional approach for stakeholders to deal with young people on the streets, except for those who come from home, of course, because then you can take the child home, and if you're a person of authority, then speak with the parent from a position of authority and make sure they do not allow this child to leave home again. But if you go to a home where the parent has to leave in the morning and come back in the evening for children to eat, so how do you ensure that this parent does what they are told to do? So that for me is the problem. We have been reduced to reacting to when something wrong happens,
instead of planning ahead.
When something happens to someone prominent or someone related to someone prominent, then you'll see the police, the army, and all the leaders start speaking up. When nothing is being reported, it's not that nothing happens actually, but things keep on happening, but to people who cannot speak up, people who are not known, then you'll see that life is normal.
Yeah.
That for me is the biggest problem.
The inability like to sense a problem and
Yeah.
solve it before it becomes
Before it becomes a problem.
yes, before
Yeah.
it becomes. Our time is really fast spent, and I know this topic is something we could expand and expand and expand. But in your last words, I want you to address your last words to the kids at home,
Yeah.
the parents, our community and the community leaders, and then the people in authority.
Yeah.
If you're parting shots to them.
For young people at home, family, no matter the complications at home, is still the best place for you. Because even when you run away from home and you go elsewhere, it will still end up with family. And eventually, if something happens to you, it's your family that will come to bury you. Also, this is not only for kids, but for anyone. Let's try and make our homes a place where people feel safe. For whatever reason, if someone is going through the worst of the worst and they think of coming home, they should find a home that is welcoming and loving. So that means that for you and me or anyone watching us who knows better, let's do our best to make our home feel like home for young people, but also for adults, because you need to, at the end of the day, when you've worked, you need to go back home and feel like you are home. You leave the stress behind. Recently, I learned a concept called the empty bot concept. So what that means is that you as a person, you are going on with your life, and then there are all these things that happen to you. So actually they say a boat is rowing in the water, and then another boat comes and bumps onto it. So then we are usually quick to react and ask, why did this happen? But then this boat and the owner looked in the other boat and saw an empty boat is what knocked it. No one was rowing the other boat. So the explanation is simple. Many times you are going on with your life, and then there are all these things that come at you, but you don't know what is driving the other thing. It could be a person, could be a vehicle, but you don't know the person who is steering it. Their mental state at that time could be someone who is struggling with their own problems, or could be a vehicle that is empty or being driven by a drunkard. They are the ones who have come at you. So if you stopped and then looked critically or tried to understand, why did that happen? Why did this empty boat come at you? Could it be that its owner did not tie it properly from where it was docked? Could it be that the chain or the rope just broke and it came? Could it be that the owner just lost a child or lost their entire saving or have been fired from work, and now they don't have a direction they are going at? That's why they bumped into you. So then if you think of the empty boat hitting you, you sort of like start thinking that there are problems all around you. So for me, what that has changed is that you need to be kind and care a little bit. Sometimes things happen around you, but the people who even perpetrate it do not have any idea that they're doing something wrong, or they're struggling with something that is beyond them. And imagine the boat was moving, and here is a falls. And that empty boat, even if it had people in it, came and bumped into you and it changed their direction. That means they are not going to plunge in the falls. And by that coincidence of them bumping into you, you have saved them. So what that means is, when something happens, stop, think about it, engage this person. You could actually be the one thing that will intervene in their life, that will change their course of direction.
True.
So, and you cannot do that if you don't care or if you're not kind. If you think you are going to react the moment anything happens, you will not take a step and stop and think. The other analogy, and it's my final one, is that sometimes you're driving and then someone will overtake you. You are in the jam, and then someone will just come and cut or overtake so many vehicles. Then this guy said, what if this person, because you don't know why they have overtaken you, you don't know why they have crossed you on the road. And he was talking about road rage, how people, quarrel on the road. What if this person was rushing their sick child to the ICU, or an accident happened and they are the only one with the vehicle in that place, and now they have to take this person? What if something is happening ahead and they're the only ones who can intervene and help that situation?
Rescue.
Because many of us don't have sirens, so if we are to overtake, we just go. So then if you look at the possibilities that this person may have actually been responding to an emergency, but because they don't have sirens to clear the way for them, they just had to go. It helps you deal with your own emotions better, and then you're not quick to say,
To accuse.
so then it helps you deal with
forgive
that,
easily.
because you don't know what they're rushing for, why they have cut you. So that way, even if they cut you simply because that is who they are, but now you're able to deal with yourself. You cannot take away your peace because someone has done something that in your opinion is wrong, because in that moment they overtook you so they can save something, and you don't have that information. So what that means is that for the broader community, if we decide to care a bit or show some kindness, then our perception about people around us changes. But also you are showing someone else that kindness is okay, care is okay. And then they will reflect and say, but I did something wrong, and this person did not repay the wrong with the wrong that I did. So can I now change how I do things? So that's sort of like the ripple effect that comes. But over and above, we need to be responsible people. If you're an adult or in a place of authority, do better. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for sparing your time to come and unpack some of these things for us and helping us to understand a lot of things. That it has been a lot of learning for me, and I hope it has been the same for our viewers. We'll always be grateful for your insights into such issues. And to our viewers, we want to say thank you for staying glued with us up until now. We want to say a story where we care about informing you, educating you, and adding value into you. That's why all our discussions always gear towards matters, issues that makes you better. I remain Alfred, and I want to say thank you so much. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Bye-bye.